I'm Will Hedrick.
And I'm Jordan Schaffer.
And this is Dog Ears and Timestamps, a book club podcast.
Dude, and this book has stolen my heart. No, but for real, it has taken a place pretty highly just for being like the first chapter, or the first part. I already really like it. I think it's going to be a fun like fantasy series. And I'm going to read the next one. I'm
definitely going to stick with the series for sure. It's different from everything else that we've read, just in its setting, with it being like, it's not steampunk.
It's kind of Renaissance.
It's not, like, you know, it's in a highly fantastical world, and it has the same sort of like, there's like obviously the huge class divide, which is really common setting for, I guess, stories like this, obviously, you know, with glorified thieves, it makes the most sense. But I don't know what exactly it is that I'm trying to say, but I don't know. It's like almost gutter punk in a way.
Gutter punk. This book just makes me think of like in Skyrim and like Oblivion, when I'd be in a town and I'd be doing like a Thieves Guild mission. And sometimes when they were like really well thought out, it was like you had to watch when this guy was going to do what at what time so that you could go and like sneak in after him. And it's
some of them were really cool for that very reason, where it's, you know, really intricate, you know, devices and plans and all that sort of stuff. It's at least in the first book, I guess we'll call it so far, it's been like very Ocean's 11-y.
Yeah, dude, I've said that several times when telling people about the book. It's like it cuts from like just your normal like street rat Aladdin style pickpocket to Ocean's 11,
right?
And back and forth, you know.
Yeah, with the time jumps where we see, you know, the beginnings of Locke, and you know where he sort of comes up in the city from being an orphan to being, you know, a thief in training in a gang. We find out later that there's like all these different gangs or whatever. So now in, you know, a part of the Gentleman Bastards, which is this little gang that, you know, the priest that he ends up with runs, or the quote unquote priest, and then the present time of the time skips, he's like running the huge scam that we follow him on in the beginnings of the scam. It's all like, you know, super elaborate, like very high level, like confidence men sort of stuff.
Yeah. One thing I will say about the time skip for the audiobook, we were talking about it before the show, but I definitely had to like do a little recap of everything on my own of like a play-by-play, just because it just... Dude, I lost my train of thought. What was I saying? Oh,
it's just hard to pick it out.
Yeah, it's really hard to tell when he's when he's switching the time jumps, and he uses the same voice for a character in both settings that are different characters.
It's just his young man voice.
Yeah, it seems like it. So for me, it was kind of hard every now and then, because, you know, some of the guys would still be relevant in other times, like they'd be in both time skips or whatever. And so sometimes I couldn't really tell where we were and then I did this little recap, and it was all like, oh, okay, that makes a lot more sense of all the little pieces I was putting together.
Right.
So, but dude, it makes me think, we've talked about another series before, The Name of the Wind. I know I have, at least. And
I have, the only familiarity I have with it is what you've ever said.
Yeah. I mean, it kind of makes me think of that book a little bit too, because there's this, you know, character, and he goes through a bunch of these different like things of growing up on the streets. It's not like the whole book about you know, a thief guild, you know, but it has a taste of it, and I'm excited to see that like this one is focused on it, so I'm excited to see like where it goes. That's literally like the first thing I do in lots of video games, is I do like the stealing quests or the heists or whatever. So just a whole book about it, you know, is going to be fun. I hope they're all kind of like that, you know.
Yeah, I'm excited, one, to see how this finishes out, and then two, how the other books go, if they're individual installments or if they continue on with Locke.
Yeah.
So I think the Locke's a really charismatic character so far.
Sure.
Although we don't know everything about him, he's been really enjoyable as a character, and I like him so far.
Yeah.
And maybe we find some sort of deep character flaw at some point, but so far I like him a lot.
Yeah, I think his character flaw is just going to be that he doesn't really have much feeling for anything being wrong, Like, I don't think he sees...
Yeah. Well, this is sort of like, at least the picture that gets painted so far, I think, is a world where that doesn't matter.
It
seems to be like a really harsh and cruel world.
Yeah.
Even beyond just that being a stereotype of storytelling, and what people might say about the real world is like, well, it's hard out there and it's dog eat dog and all those things. True to different degrees, but this seems like a world where there is very little good.
It seems to me like that just because that's where we're living. Like if it was a story about like a nobleman's kid, maybe it wouldn't seem so steely.
Yeah, but if it was a nobleman's kid, they might be a little rosy-eyed until they become nobles and are more enlightened to how everything else works in the city,
Yeah, but then it'd be to the same degree of like the Ocean's 11 style thing. Like they'd be trying to, like the guy in Ocean's 11 that owned the hotel. But do you know that Dane Cook joke where he says, there's like something all guys want to do, and it's pull off a heist.
Yeah, I remember that. Yeah,
dude, that's one of his jokes.
It's true.
Dude, that's one of his jokes.
Certainly,
that
with
I
the
always
different,
think about.
Those are always really popular movies.
Yeah,
going back as far as like, at least that I can remember off the top of my head, like one of the first big heist movies ever was The Italian Job. Not the remake that happened like in 2005, but the original that happened like in 1957 or something like that.
How wild would it have been if 2005 was the first
right. That's the oldest, like big, like intricate heist movie that I am aware of, or like I said, I can think of off the top of my head right now. And, that's a really popular movie enough that it got a remake, albeit, like 50, 60 years later. And then there's, obviously, in our sort of time period, Ocean's 11 is the biggest one.
Yeah.
Certainly, at least just with the star power. That's
exactly. I was going to say the all-star cast they had.
There's this movie that I really like with Michael Caine and Demi Moore called Flawless. And that's just a movie about them stealing diamonds. That movie's dope as shit. If you haven't seen that, you should see that. I think that came out in 2008 or something like that. But there's those. That's always a movie, and it will always be a movie. Is Heist?
Yeah,
that's going to always be super popular, and it romanticizes the idea of doing something because it's really complicated. You'd have to be really cool and like smart and capable to pull it off, and everybody wants to think that they are, And so it speaks to a lot of things that at least as a stereotype and a caricature of what a man quote unquote is. Feeds into a lot of that idea for sure.
I never understood the diamond heist. It seemed like a waste of time. Like, who are you going to fence that to? Literally everyone knows it's a stolen diamond.
Right. That certainly these days would be probably next to impossible.
Yeah.
So, and I guess like the level or like the amount of diamonds you steal and who you steal them from as well would be a big factor, I think.
Yeah.
I think if you stole jewelry from
your enemy
Falcon Jewelry in Portland, Texas, you might not have to worry about it too much if you just took it to another state and sold them somewhere. You pawn them off here and there and things like that. But if you stole from a supplier, you're going to get caught.
I'm thinking of
without
like
any
the big movies where it's like they go in and they do the cutout with the glass circle, and then they like pop out the glass and they like sneak in, and they're burglars dodging lasers to get the one diamond that's like worth $50 billion, and they're gonna
I think set for like in that specific instance, they're selling it to somebody who is very rich. Yeah, it's like some mad millionaire who just wants it have it on his display.
Some Indian prince that's just ungodly.
Someone
rich.
who already is in bad business to begin with, probably, and doesn't have the cops over to look at his collection. Nobody that he would get in trouble with. He just shows it to his other bad guy friend. Look at this shit that I've got.
It's a good point.
I think at least that's always the sort of plot line of the movie or whatever it is. Is that there's already a buyer lined up or that's whatever it might be.
That would be kind of cool actually. Going over to Pablo's house. Pablo Escobar. That's what
I was going to say. And he probably has a few stolen diamonds. I'm going to assume. I have no idea. He might not like that sort of thing at all. He might be a practical bad man.
Well, hey, when did you find time to read? When were you reading this bad boy?
Mostly at work.
Yeah.
It's mostly what I do. I just read at work. Because it's just time that I get paid to do nothing.
Yeah, I mean, you're already sitting there. You might as well do something to make it. It's not like you're pulling customers at the
right. Yeah.
at the service desk like they're
so
coming to you.
I find myself with a lot of downtime, so I try to read there.
Yeah.
Most of it was probably 2 days ago and today.
Yeah.
But
yeah, same here. I did it all like at work, but audio, and then it was mostly like Monday and yesterday, and then I did a little bit more today, but it was just more like brushing up, making sure I had some finer details kind of figured out, trying to get some names down. Still don't have them down. It's always these first sections that are like hard for me to get a grasp because like there's so much foundation they have to lay, right? That like it doesn't feel.
And
like
if there's like an
happened.
ensemble cast, then you're getting like you've got like 8 people that you immediately need to remember. And whenever you're reading it, it's easier to immediately remember and be like, well, that's a name that I saw 5 paragraphs ago, so I know who that is. But then like trying to recall, like right now, I can't remember the twins' names.
Yeah,
it's Kalo and Galdo are their first names, but I can't remember their last name. It's also a C last name, I think. But as an example, like I can't remember all of it immediately. It's easier whenever you're reading it because it's there in print. You can reference the paragraph before where it was also there in print.
Right. Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I guess so far we've got really just like 6 characters that we need to be keeping track of, with the priest, obviously Locke Lamora, chains, and the quote unquote blind priest that takes him in or buys him from his initial master that pulls him off of the street. Nah. I don't. But I have the benefit of having read past the first section. So, and then we've got his cohorts, the twins, which are a riot, like most twins are in fiction, like the Weasleys and I guess most twins in different fiction. They're always used as they're an easy comedic device. Twins, yeah, that's true. Only fiction twins.
Real twins
suck.
Boring.
I know a lot of them, and they're all the worst.
There were 11 sets in our class.
There were 9 sets. Class. That's why they were the 9 of 09.
Pretty sure it was the 09-11. Get it? That was their saying.
I never heard that.
I literally made it up. But no, the twins are pretty cool.
And then there's
I don't even know if we really need to know about them though that much. I feel like they're just going to be like red shirts, Like they're both the same character, but there are 2 of them.
Yeah.
But
I guess it depends on how successful this scam goes and how long it goes.
That's a good point.
Because for now they're playing interchangeable third or just like random characters for the scam. The only faces that the Dawn that they're scamming knows is Locke's as this Vadran merchant, or I haven't decided how I want to pronounce it because they seem to be the kingdom that he claims to be from in the north seems to be Germanic in all their names. So if it is German inspired, then it would actually be Fadran. How do they pronounce it in the book? In the audiobook, I guess. Yeah. That's how they. Okay, so I was right.
Yeah, dude. Because reading it,
Visares
I was like,
German.
what? That doesn't sound exactly right, but whatever.
Right. Yeah. No. Visares in German, sound wise, or foul is the name of the letter in German. I took German. And so the merchant that he's playing from some Fadran merchant of this house. The structure was very quickly explained of how the government works up there, and it was confusing. I don't care to look into it too much more.
Yeah, it just seemed like you needed to know who was at the top, and you just seemed to know. Like,
well, it seems to be like a confederacy of sorts, where there's no leading organization. It's just like all the great houses get together, and it's held together like that or something like that. It doesn't matter. So, and then Jean or Jean, whatever, is one of his buddies is his assistant for that character.
Yeah.
Where the twins run around and they'll play bandits or they'll play. One of them was like a local like banker that happened to know the merchant and that sort of thing.
Yeah.
So we'll see how important any of them end up being. I think obviously Locke at least survives until the end.
Yeah, they named it after him, so...
I think if somebody dies, maybe Bug, the little kid, dies, because if you have like the young protege die, that's an easy heartstring to pull on.
That's a good one. Yeah, that seems like a good one to just knock off. I won't get too attached to him.
Yeah,
I've decided now. I wasn't ahead of time. Ahead of time, I was like, oh, it's the little Locke.
Right.
But yeah,
it's pretty cool. I think I like the world building so far too.
Me too.
With Camorra, the place that they're in, seems to be like really Spanish inspired.
Mm-hmm.
Their dons are what they call like the lesser nobility, and then everything is pretty Spanish named, and a lot of people have those sort of Spanish influenced sounding names and stuff like that. But it's like a port city, a trading city, so there's a lot of people from other kingdoms that come through. I think so far we only know about Camorra and Fadra, or whatever it's called, up north. Mm-hmm. I think they mentioned a couple of other small places, but those are the two that we've gotten any real sense of.
Isn't Locke part Fadra or something, right?
I think they said that he was something else.
He's
like a good mix. They make a
Theron
point.
And Vadran.
Theron, yeah, that's another... area. It might not even be a kingdom. It might just be like an area somewhere else. But they make a point of ensuring that we know that he's like a perfect mix of just blandness, where he can sort of fit in a couple of different ways. And he is like, he looks exactly like the kind of person that would just blend in and you would forget, which is perfect for his, now purpose in life.
Exactly, dude. And that's like the big thing with like serial killers, psychopaths, like the best thieves. It's like they just blend right in. You never know.
Right. Yeah.
And
a lot of that can also just be, obviously, if you have the appearance to blend in, great.
Yeah.
But the so much of that is also like a skill or an acquired, talent sort of thing to make yourself blend in, where you the way that you carry yourself, the way that you speak or don't speak. Yeah. And that sort of stuff.
Well, dude, speaking of that, there's a point, so like in the beginning where Locke is, like we first kind of meet Locke, and it introduces the idea that he's stolen like before, so he ends up joining like his first sort of thieves guild with the Thief Master, right? That's his name?
The Thief Maker. As he's like getting into the, the hill, the cemetery or whatever, he shows the Thief Maker that he had already stolen something from the guards that he bought them from.
And then he said, like, because he said where did you learn how to do that? And he's like, oh, I just like taught myself. And he's like, I don't believe you. No 5-year-old sits around and learns how to cut purses, So either he did teach himself, or he's been taught, And so that's one thing I guess I was thinking about a little bit is like, do you think maybe he was that's like part of like his past, because he didn't even like get purchased by the original thief maker. Like he snuck in with all the other orphans that he was buying at the time, and he noticed, but he's like, I'll take a freebie.
Yeah, I guess it could be like an interesting twist to learn,
like if
who he learned from or what it would be.
1-year-old to be a thief.
But he seems to be totally clueless to the secret piece and all that sort of, the intricacies of the underworld in this city.
But he could be from a different city too, because he's part Theron or whatever, and we're in Camorra. So like, it's just a fun thought. I don't know.
No, yeah, I mean, and it's certainly yet to be revealed, or maybe it never gets revealed.
Right.
It is an interesting detail to catch on for sure.
Yeah, I was just curious. Maybe it was something, but it could be nothing. It was kind of.
I think at this point we're sort of led to believe that he's been an orphan for a minute, and he doesn't have any siblings, and so he's been making his way on his own for at least a little while.
I like to think he taught himself for some reason. For some reason, to me, the idea of him being like such a natural and already trying to think around all these, like, I don't want to say cut corners, but thinking of ways to like. Evade people and kind of sneak past the system. It's
right.
Like, it's cool to me to think that he's a natural at it, because also it kind of alludes to him being not like heartless, because he seems to like people, but it seems to him he doesn't have any remorse for anything, because he'll just steal from anybody at any time, all the time. Right. He just loves to do it,
And certainly as he becomes older, he can then sort of see that it's a bit of a necessity in the world that he lives in. because this is sort of dystopian in a way. The place that they live,
I can see that. Yeah.
It's pretty corrupted. It seems it's got like the hard divide of you either have money or you live in the slums. There's no middle class.
Yeah,
it seems like there's like gladiatorial stuff that happens.
Yeah,
they hang people from a bridge so that everybody can see. There's a lot of kind of classical details about how this place is really difficult to live in and probably sucks for everybody unless you're at the top. But we also are looking at it from the point of view of the underworld.
The people at the bottom.
There's very little chance that we'll ever see, and if there is a middle class, there's almost no reason that we would see them.
Yeah,
certainly not with the way that the gentleman bastards work. They seem to exclusively steal from the rich.
The middle class is going to be like the merchants and stuff, like the people, like when they're when they're at like the carnival or whatever, it'll be like the
people in the background,
people that are still at that building that own the pub or whatever,
right?
Like people making a living but not thriving,
right?
And they just keep the city going. I love these worlds. Like, it's fun to pretend to be in them because I still have AC. but
right.
But I love playing with the idea of going to one of those places, and I mean, I guess that's
one of the reasons that video games are so
I was literally
great.
About to say that. Literally, yeah, I was thinking that.
There's like Assassin's Creed is cool.
That's another kind of good example of kind of like a world I'm imagining, just like that Assassin's Creed era, kind of like castles all over the place.
Right. Yeah.
Lots of parkour abilities.
Yeah. And even that is really,
the front cover of the book is him climbing.
In slight contrast to what is in here, because those are all places and times that existed.
Right.
It's just got a fantastical storyline to it, where there's this Assassin's Guild and they fight the Templars and there's this great conspiracy about, these pieces of Eden, and there's gods that are involved, and it gets pretty fucking off the rails. But
did you have a picture of of Lamora in your book?
I did.
Well, it was a bunch of islands, right? Like it was.
It's like a bay, and a lot of it is islands. Okay. Maybe some of them are man-made and stuff like that. It describes, how does it describe it at the beginning? It describes it really interestingly, that like an amphitheater is what it said. Okay. It almost looks like an amphitheater.
Yeah, I meant to go look at that because I needed like a visual for it, but I
looked at it for a second, and it's got all the districts named and drawn out, and they're all wild fucking names, and I was like, there's no reason for me to look at this right now. I can't. Like, this means nothing to me. It's just a bunch of gibberish. But it is really interesting. I think there's very little that I don't. There's some of the pacing has been kind of weird, I think, in the beginning. There has been times that I read like 60 pages without a thought and was like, just, oh man, I've, read as much as I want to read tonight. I got a good section done. And then there were times where I was, I think mostly in parts of the interludes, the in-between chapters where they jump back in time, where it just felt like it was a lot. And I would see that the paragraph was just them talking and then describing about like the food at the table and be like, I don't need to read that. I would almost fully skip it. I would just go into like my speed read skim where I just catch like the nouns and stuff like that. But I think that's just, it could be just the nature of the fact that we're jumping times.
They're for sure using it as like a plot device to tell us things because like we get Locke in the future, spoiler. Right. Not really spoiler.
Well, that's the beginning of the first chapter.
It's Locke in in his 20s, and I mean, I guess that's kind of I think what he's trying to do with the time jump is like at some point Locke calls himself what do they call the leader of thieves order, like a gremlin? No, it starts with a G, right? Like
it's
they call him something like a Garen or whatever, and then literally like the next
Garissa.
The next section is like...
I'm making it Spanish sounding because everything else in this city sounds like Spanish.
And then their names are German or whatever.
Well, people from the northern place are German. Everything in Camorra is very Spanish influenced, it seems like. At least the native Camorras. But yeah, it's... So like the prologue is... him as a child, and then the first chapter is him as an adult. They're starting this heist where what they're going to do is they've got this Don that they're targeting, and they're going to steal half of his money.
Yeah, it actually sounds like a heist they've been pulling off for...
Evidently, they've scammed other Dons and
it seems like they're
Danyas
targeting...
in the city.
Like, they're not targeting, like, the kings. They're targeting, like, his like, lesser lords or whatever. People that are still loaded, but that are going to be too embarrassed to tell on them. You know? Yeah. So, it seems like they're just targeting them like, hey, we have this secret in on what's happening to the most world-renowned brandy. What did they call it in it? It's, you just said the name beautifully.
I think it's Alfreshan.
Yeah,
something like that. It's a
brandy. It's this magically infused brandy that like
it's the most sought after brandy in the world.
Yeah, I don't know what else it could possibly do other than get you drunk without a hangover. That's literally all we've found out about it so far, and that it tastes spectacular.
Yeah, the quality is just like bar none.
But
and probably having been that way, it's now made a name of itself worldwide. So now the name is also worth money.
That's true.
Just in the same way that people, don't mind spending a lot of money for Maker's Mark or, Kettle One vodka and, other high shelf, liquors and wines and things like that, because there's a name that you're paying for to some extent.
Yeah.
You hope that what you're paying for is also really good quality, but there's definitely a bit of the name in there.
Yeah, dude, like Blanton's for sure. They'll just throw a price on any of that. But that's kind of what they're trying to target here too, is they're saying, hey, there's going to be a civil war going on based on these facts, which some are true and some are not. So it kind of like gives simple foreshadowing that maybe there will be a civil war. But, whether there is or isn't.
It could be a plot point or setting for one of the next books.
Right, yeah. But the point of the heist is just that they're replacing this brandy. The barrels of brandy, they're replacing it with labels that say it's beer, basically, and they're
trying to sneak all their
they're going to smuggle out the beer.
Allegedly,
but
they're trying
filled with brandy.
Sneak out all their product, and because while the Civil War is going on, this house is not going to be able to produce.
Right.
So they need to get it out of there and try to sell it, and because there will be a shortage, they'll be able to sell it at inflated prices and then use that profit to take back their vineyards at the end of the Civil War and get back in business,
Well, and there will be a shortage for the next 10, 20, 30 years.
However long it takes to do.
They got to start from square
one. Yeah, they got to rebuild the fields and all that sort of stuff.
Just a quick little thing, you guys. We keep hearing like airplanes and stuff.
Something's going on. There's been several official cars of an official capacity going down the street, and now there's a helicopter patrolling the neighborhood. So
sorry,
this is Southeast Austin, so it's not a surprise.
Yeah, Will and I were smiling too much at each other for me not saying anything about
that's
it.
True.
So I was like, I gotta say this.
But so the scam on the Dawn is that they want the Dawn to facilitate the transportation and fund the expedition to do so.
And they're just gonna bail.
Yeah, they're gonna just get all the money. Well, I guess because they're
at least that's what
like
I think
they get like
I don't know.
Yeah, because I think that a lot of it is money that they're going to directly get, but then a lot of the funding goes towards buying the ships, hiring the crew, which are all things that the Dawn's going to handle. Yeah, where does that go? That's what I'm saying.
I thought that the money was going into Locke's pocket, and he's like, I got you, boss. And then he was going to go and he was going to I figured he was just going to fake it for the first day and come back and be like, this is what I got done. And then he's going to get more money the second day. And then he's just going to dip after day 2. And
that he's going to, or at least the Don said that he would fund, he agrees, I'll fund all this stuff. I will, I don't remember the exact words he says, but he does say something like, I'll get galleons for the expedition and I'll find the men. Certainly because he says that he wants to be the one in charge of hiring the men. That's part of his condition for agreeing to the deal.
So where does the heist lay? I wonder where exactly.
Yeah, there's some end game that hasn't been revealed that ends up being the actual payoff.
Yeah, I thought they were just, since they were doing this setup to so many different people like along the way, it felt like. It kind of just felt like they were just like, all right, I'm going to con this guy, and then I'm going to con this guy in the next city, and then I'm going to con this one in the next city, and they're just going to work their trick on these different different towns or whatever, and play the leader, get as much as they can, and then go to the next one. And then I thought that they were just so embarrassed that they spent all this money on basically if Columbus had failed, she just would have been like, I didn't do that. She would have just been like, whatever, money down the drain. That's kind of what in my mind, what I imagined they're trying to do. They're just trying to be like, hey, invest in us. And then it's like, I'll bet it later. I'm just gonna run out. Yeah. So I don't know.
Yeah.
I like the idea of there being more in there because, like you said, that was part of his requirements that he hired the people. So I like the idea of maybe him even trying to use his cunning to to get the crew on his side so that he can even steal the brandy at the end. I don't know. It's just I'd love to see the next layer of this because I don't see it yet.
Yeah, there's something else that we're gonna find out. There's probably several things that we're gonna find out.
I hope, yeah.
In the same way that the whole thing where then like in this somewhere in the second chapter or wherever, the Dawn gets visited by a couple of Midnighters. They're called, which are like the Duke's like personal secret police. And they're like, the elite ninjas of the city or whatever. And they go to the Dawn and they're like, hey, we've been following the Thorn of Lamora is what they call him. They don't know that it's Locke, but they know his, his handiwork. And they're like, we've been tracking him for a long time. And now this is the opportunity for our sting operation. So just go with whatever he says. The Duke will repay you whatever you lose, but we need to be able to catch him and his network. So we need this to play out. And then it gets revealed immediately that that's just Locke.
As it was happening, I was like, oh my God, I hope this is one of their guys. Like, I hope they're just double conning him right here. They're like, hey, keep paying them, but they're the ones actually conning you. And then all the while, like, they're both conning him.
Yeah, it's just Locke and Kalo that go there and act as one of the Midnighters.
Yeah.
And they are putting a lot of investment into this because they had to buy one of the casks of brandy that's like a legendary vintage of it as one of the gifts that they give to the Dawn. And then they had to pay to have a counterfeit of one of the Midnighters' badges made.
I wonder why they bought it. Why didn't they just lift it? Maybe it'd be too
I don't think anybody knows who a Midnighter is.
No, I was thinking the brandy. Sorry.
Oh, well, I guess the way that it sort of painted it out was that there's probably only like 100 of those casks left in the world or something like that.
The bottle is 522. If you take 522, they'll know that it's
right. Yeah,
it's the only one.
And so I guess for whatever reasons, the way that it was easiest or most effective for them to get it was to. And they did steal it because they did it in a rigged card game.
Right, yeah.
So
I love this
they just didn't like dive into the investment was getting to that city and setting up the card game, I guess.
Yeah, one of the fun things about this world is that like we have the luxury of being like omnipotent, so we kind of know everything, and it's just fun to think like if we were back in the day or whatever. I hate to say that I would become a bad guy and I'd just be like, well, I'm smarter than everybody. I'm just going to pull off some heists, and just get away with it because I know how. I hate to say I would do that, but I'm pretty sure, like, if I was just smarter, I would definitely just use my noggin and get some money. And it's that's what's fun about this is that, like, as they're doing things, I'm thinking, like, oh my God, that could never happen now because they could just call the other people, But because they can't, they're just hopping from city to city and just playing all of them. And it's and they even have that the illusion of authority coming through with the I forgot what they're called already, the King's Guard, but not that the white
the Midnighters,
thank you.
The secret police.
Yeah, and it's just cool. Yeah, it's fun to think of just like them being able to do that. I'm not sure, but I have a feeling it's going to come back to get them eventually because somebody's going to be like, oh, there's Locke.
There's something going on that is either just a red herring or a misdirection of a character that's on our side. And I have another theory about it as well. But twice there was a shadow that flies by on the rooftops.
Great point. I wanted to bring that up.
The first time they notice it, but they're kind of like, man, that was a really quick bird or whatever, but they're already in the middle of something else, so they can't pay too much attention to it. And then the second time is whenever Locke and Jean are parting from the Dawn, going back into their hotel. And then the book, as you know, a narration says, this time the shadow on the rooftops wasn't noticed by any of them. So there's someone watching everything that's happening, and that's either maybe it's one of the Midnighters, or
maybe it's us.
Maybe it's and this is my current theory that I really like, is maybe it's the girl that we keep hearing about that was in the Gentleman Bastards that is now away from the group for whatever reason.
That was Jean.
No, she has a different name. It's
I thought that was like her fake name.
No, Jean or Jean is a fat boy. He's a big fat man.
Oh man, dude, I would have bet you like $5 that like.
No, her name is, I can't remember her name. It's a weird name, but it's not. Jean is somebody that wasn't there whenever Locke joins the church. Mm-hmm. Jean came in at some other point during the time skip, and then, but the girl was sold to Chains just before Locke was sold to Chains, and she has a different name. It's a weird name. It's like almost a real name, but then it's not, like there's a couple of letters that make it not.
Yeah. Dude, dang, I could have sworn that like when they were like introducing themselves, it said like, and this is my wife, and his wife, Nakosa, Donis. No, that's the Don's wife. Okay, I'm stupid. Okay, got it. I'm on the same page. For some reason I had it as like a boy and girl duo, as them getting beaten up. But like when they were getting the Don to stop and help them.
No.
Yeah.
But so we haven't met the girl yet. She's whenever Locke joins the church with Chains and the twins and the girl, whatever her stupid name is, are the only ones in Chains' gang at that moment. Mm-hmm. But she's off training somewhere.
Yeah.
And he's really weird about it too. He says something like, but unfortunately you can't meet her because she's off getting an education. He's really weird about it.
Probably learning some seductive arts that only girls.
Right, that's what I immediately figured. Because that would be pretty fitting for this, setting. And then later, whenever they're having in the present time, they're having dinner after the second touch, and they're celebrating. And
Locke brings her up.
Someone else brings her up because they're doing the ritual, the toasting to fallen friends and their 13th god and all this shit.
Yeah, and just people.
And he wants to just pass over it, and the twins are like, "No, you know that you need to do this toast for her because she's not with us right now." And he's like, he tries to do it real quick or whatever, because evidently he fell in love with her at some point during the time skip. He falls in love with whatever her stupid name is. We should just look up her stupid name.
The only girl that we've been introduced to at all. Well, at the end of this new one, we get another little bratty girl, but at the end of chapter 2.
Yeah, it's the end of the final interlude of this book. There is a daughter of the main boss, the boss of bosses, and she sucks.
The actual Don.
Well, not the Don.
No, I know. I just meant like the top. Yeah, dude, it's not going to be in these notes for me. I remember reading through it and thinking like, well, those are all the names I need.
Right. It's a goofy ass name.
Yeah.
We'll learn it and we'll say it next week.
Yeah,
it might be. So I think that the shadow might be her. Is what I was getting at.
Okay, yeah. I mean,
because that would be
skilled enough to do it. I mean, she's been,
and that would be a total like classic, story tactic. Would be, here's this character that we're being told very casually about.
Yeah,
maybe she'll show up again, and then there's the time skip, and the main character fell in love with that character.
Right. I like it.
And then now there's this mystery shadow that we're, very passively being told about a couple of times. And then she comes to the rescue at some point. Like the plan's about to fall through, but then she comes in and stabs somebody in a critical moment. That's the whole sort of thing.
Cool. That'll be fun. Just having her pop in and save the day.
Yeah. Which I'm totally for. So I think that, we've talked about it all, or whatever. And
that's pretty much everything I can think of. I mean,
and in the spirit of what we're trying to do is just make this more a conversational podcast, as opposed to, I think whenever we were trying to learn what it is that we were going to do with the show, we had to kind of go like recap mode.
Yeah.
And go through it that way. But I think that we have better episodes whenever we just kind of talk about it like this.
It was fun hitting all the points and not really needing a timeline for anything, because it was just like, and this is important because of whatever. And it helps us kind of say what we think is important. And not necessarily like, well, this happened, so maybe it'll be important. It's like, well, this mattered to me, so let's talk about it.
Yeah.
Yeah, so...
and it's certainly the way that this book is structured, where...
Yeah, the book's structured that way, too.
each book or section, whatever you want to call it, is really only half length, and because it's just two different time periods, running sequentially... parallel to each other.
Yeah.
So it's considered, I don't know, I guess I kind of lost track of what I was trying to say there, but it's there's just the way that it's structured is a little bit easier to just talk about it.
Yeah, I mean, it's not chronological at all. I mean, it is.
Well, we've got two lines happening, one in the past and one in the present. And they're happening chronologically to each other.
Right.
We've got the heist, which is the present time, and then we've got
I guess
bits of backstory that I think and we'll see as we get the full picture, but I think each bit of the backstory has a theme or a meaning that sheds light on what happens in its either however it is that it's intended, it's successive or preceding the current story bit.
Yeah.
But
you're right.
Yeah, I like it so far.
Yeah, I'm excited. I'm really eager to get into the next bit. Dude, I'm excited for it as like a series as a whole. I hope we hang on to Locke as a character. He's going to be fun.
Yeah.
I mean, I like the idea.
Because the next one is at least for what we saw, is like the cover is a ship, right?
Yeah.
So maybe the next one...
He's a pirate. Stealing the seas,
right.
Dude.
If it sticks with the same characters, it's called the Gentleman Bastard series.
Right.
And so that's, their gang
legacy,
is the Gentleman Bastards. So it could definitely be just a legacy thing. Yeah. Where now we're looking at a different group of the Gentleman Bastards. Or maybe we follow Locke throughout the whole goddamn thing, which would be awesome.
That would be cool.
Because I like him a lot so far. But what if, like, everything in here is, the scam or whatever with the Dawn, and then the second book is them having to flee Lamora, and so that's why they're on the ship, and they're going to go off to another major city to do new things or whatever they're going to do.
I like it, dude. I like it. That sounds good to me.
Because this is a job big enough that they're probably going to have to... I feel like they would have to flee afterwards. They're taking half of Adon's money. They're getting so involved with several different parties. Mm-hmm. He's...
If they don't produce and they're still stealing brandy. So it's like everyone's going to want to cut... Yeah, they're going to have to flee. There's no... Even if they don't steal the brandy. Even if they don't steal
because that
brandy,
seems to be entirely a fabrication.
I still think that the Civil War could happen. So I think that that stealing the brandy is a potential, but I don't know if...
Locke has a short inner monologue where he says that in truth there is a lot of unrest up in Vajra, but he didn't think that anything would actually happen for another 3 months, by which time they would be long gone with half of the Dawn's money.
Right, yeah. So I guess that would allude that they're not going to go mess with
something bigger is going to happen than just literally taking the Dawn's money. I don't know what it is. It seems like if the idea is to steal the brandy, I don't know how they're going to do that. Because if nothing is about to happen, and
if they don't actually have people
and
swapping the barrels.
and that wine, that wine or brandy company isn't yet making those kinds of moves, then how are they going to steal it? That seems way too far fetched at this point. But who knows?
Yeah.
It could get that far fetched.
Yeah, man. This is the Gentleman Bastards after all. They could surprise you.
That's true.
Let's rename Ocean's 11 the Gentleman Bastards. Well, maybe not.
There's this podcast that I listen to and that I've been listening to for a long time. It's the IGN UK podcast. But a long time ago, this was before, it was after Casino Royale.
Oh, nice.
But before the next one came out, and they had a write-in campaign for all the listeners. They'd be like, let us know what you think the next James Bond movie is going to be titled, because those are always the two big James Bond things are going to be what car does he drive and what's the theme song going to be. Those are two cultural cornerstones whenever a James Bond movie comes out.
I didn't know that.
But then obviously titles become a big deal because most of the movies are standalone. Mm-hmm. So people would write in stuff, and a lot of them were really funny. But the one that I always remember was James Bond or 007, Tuxedo Bastard.
Tuxedo Bastard.
And I just thought that was hilarious.
That's awesome, dude. That's literally what a lot of these guys are. They're old school tuxedo bastards.
Right.
So you want to just do the next book, or you think it'll be too big?
The next one is about the same size.
Okay. You
want to it starts on the Kindle edition. It starts on page 140 and ends on page 295. So it's another 150 pages or something.
That was fine this last week?
Yeah.
Okay.
I thought that worked out really well.
Yeah.
And the way that because everything seems to be I mean, it's sectioned in these ways for a reason. So I think that's best for, us being able to talk about it.
Yeah, for sure.
As opposed to, stopping halfway through a thought,
Yeah. Cool,
so,
yeah. I mean...
So this next section, Book 2, Complication.
Nice.
We'll read that and then end whenever we get to Book 3, Revelation.
Yeah, and guys, like we say, pretty regularly, this is a book club. So, we're trying to be more conversational with our, podcasting. So, hopefully y'all can, reach out to us.
Join the conversation.
Yeah, I'd love that. And then we could get some thoughts, predictions, anything. Just things you might want us to talk about. Whatever. So, yeah, spread the word. Tell your friends. You know where to find us. Anywhere podcasts are found. And... Gmail.
There's currently an issue on Google Play right now. For some reason, the podcast isn't posting. So you can still find us on SoundCloud. You can find us on iTunes. And those are...
Do the other apps and stuff bring them in?
Yeah, I think the podcasting app that I use pulls it from the iTunes feed.
Oh, cool. Okay.
Just for some reason, and I already sent a ticket into the Google Play podcast support team, and they said they're going to try to figure it out. But right now, it's not posting on Google Play. So... Sorry about that if that's where you get it from. For now, just, bear with the process and listen to us on SoundCloud or download the nightmare that is iTunes and get it there.
Yeah, so...
Well, I'm Will Hedrick.
I'm Jordan Schaffer.
And this is Dog Ears and Timestamps. It is almost baseball season.